Discrimination. One word, huge meaning. People have constantly been discriminating against others for centuries. But what is discrimination? Because it isn't something we are taught in school, but it's something we had to learn by experience. In Merriam-Webster Dictionary, discrimination means the act, practice, or an instance of discriminating categorically rather than individually. Over the years, discrimination has become more and more of an issue to the public. There are many things to discriminate about, including weight, sexuality, race, sex, religion, disease, and many more. The topic of this speech is on discrimination of the hearing impaired. Much of the discrimination comes from a workplace, but the rest of the discrimination comes from the community that these people live in. The discrimination coming from a workplace is due to the lack of knowledge that needs to be present to be having a hearing impaired employee, but it is not impossible. In a 2012 article titled Fighting Workplace Discrimination Against the Hearing Impaired by Jenna Shaw, states that the EEOC filed a lawsuit in the spring of 2012 against a Wendy's franchise in Texas that refused to hire a hearing impaired man with more than 2 years of experience at another fast food franchise. There, the general manager baldly declared, "There is really no place for someone we cannot communicate with," otherwise stating that just because the man was deaf, they could not hire him. If I must say so myself, that's bullcrap. Here's why: there are way more ways to get around any problem. But the problem is, employers don't understand how to accommodate for the workers, so they just ignore the situation. In a 2012 article titled Fighting Workplace Discrimination Against the Hearing Impaired by Jenna Shaw, states many cases of an inadvertent workplace discrimination against those with hearing loss can be prevented or remedied by involving a proactive audiologist. Ms. Clark suggested if a person with hearing loss doesn't know what to ask for, and if the employer doesn't know what to give them, performance is going to suffer. Then there are the employers who don't want to have to deal with it at all. In a 2011 article titled Estimates of Wages Discrimination Against Workers with Sensory Disabilities with Controls for Job Demands by Morgio, L. Baldwin, and Chung Cho, states sensory disabilities require different types of job accommodations, e.g. TDD, connections, talking computers, than do other disabilities, and employers may perceive those accommodations to be more expensive or more disruptive to the workplace. If the employers took the time to realize that sometimes the solutions were very simple, then they could still employ the few people with hearing impairment. With the employers keeping the hearing impaired from getting jobs, this is lowering the amount of jobs available. In the same article, Estimates of Wages Discrimination Against Workers with Sensory Disabilities with Controls for Job Demands by Marjorie L. Baldwin and Chung Cho, states all analyses are conducted separately for men and women. The final samples include 1,122 men, 1,297 women with sensory disabilities, of whom 12% are employed, and 28,262 men and 34,686 women in the non-disabled comparison groups, of whom 63.65% are employed. On top of this, according to the article, Estimates of Wages Discrimination against workers with sensory disabilities with controls for job demands. 16% versus 83 men and women. And 12% versus 65% for women is the employment rate for the disabled compared to their counterpart. So, as we all see, people with hearing impairments aren't treated fairly and being discriminated against just because they can't hear. At the end of the day, the hearing impaired will still be discriminated against. But maybe that could be because non-disabled don't understand their situation. Many hearing people don't know how to communicate with deaf. But the hearing impaired know multiple ways to communicate with the hearing. In a 2013 article titled Reconsidering Sound in the City, Asserting the Right to Deaf-Friendly City, written by Jill Howard, states, to be deaf is not to hear, for most profoundly deaf people, but a social relation. What the deaf person sees in these other hearing and deaf people is not the presence or absence of hearing, not their soundfulness or their silence, but their mode of communication. They sign or they move their lips. If the deaf can learn to read lips and communicate, then the hearing could also learn sign language to make things easier for someone who is deaf. Before you go and discriminate against someone who lost their hearing, first learn about their situation and help make things easier for them, and they will do the same for you. It's called taking chances, and they really appreciate it.